Professor X is the worst thing to happen to the X-Men. I said it. Yep, I said it. Let that sink in. Think about it for a bit. While you process that, get ready to uncover the hidden truths about your favorite mutants. Today we're diving deep into the X-Men's most guarded secrets. From Cyclops' uncanny spatial awareness and Beast's pheromone manipulation to Iceman's Omega level potential and Nightcrawler's dimensional hopping. Everyone's doing something over here. And today we'll explore Colossus's unbreakable armor, Storm's godlike power, Gambit's explosive secrets, Magneto's mental fortress, and even Wolverine's bone-clawed past. Prepare to have your mind blown. Number 10. Cyclops' spatial awareness. We all know about the optic blasts, right? How amazing is that? Getting mad and just yelling at someone with your eyes. The raw concussive force that Cyclops unleashes from his eyes alone are amazing. But what often gets overlooked is the brilliant tactical mind behind those ruby quartz lenses. Cyclops possesses an almost precognitive understanding of spatial geometry. He's not just blasting randomly, he's calculating trajectories, ricochets, and angles with superhuman precision, turning his optic blasts into guided weapons. He can also bounce beams off of multiple surfaces, hitting targets from impossible angles, making him a far more formidable opponent than he appears. Think of him as a living, breathing physics engine, a master tactician who can visualize the battlefield in 3 dimensions and predict the path of his blasts with pinpoint accuracy. And he looks cool while he does it. The spatial awareness is a cornerstone of his leadership, allowing him to direct his team with unparalleled effectiveness and rarely be caught off guard. Number 9. Beast's hidden power, pheromone manipulation. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Beyond the brilliant intellect and aerobatic ability, Beast, the X-Men's resident blue furball, whatever you want to call him, he harbors a secret weapon, the ability to subtly manipulate emotions through pheromones. Imagine him diffusing a tense hostage situation with a calming scent, or subtly influencing a hostile crowd, making them more receptive to his reasoned arguments. He'll just puff out his armpits and all of a sudden you're relaxed. He could even use his pheromones to gain a tactical advantage in combat, perhaps inducing fear or confusion into his opponents. This hidden talent is a fascinating blend of his enhanced animalistic physiology and his scientific mind. It's largely untapped and represents a whole new dimension to this character. It's a power that could be used for good, for manipulation, or even just to get himself out of a sticky situation, making Beast far more complex and potentially an influential figure than we ever really realized. It also makes him a wild card. Quit moving your pheromones around, fella. Number 8. Iceman's Omega level potential. Often underestimated as the X-Men's resident jokester, Iceman is far more than just a walking snow cone machine. He's classified as an Omega level mutant, a designation that signifies his cryokinetic powers that have no defined upper limit. This means his ability to manipulate cold and ice is theoretically infinite. He can freeze any matter he chooses, transform his entire body into organic ice, create sentient ice duplicates of himself to fight alongside him, and even lower the temperature of his surroundings to absolute zero, potentially plunging entire regions, or even, you heard me, the planet, into this new ice age. It'd be a terrible time. Iceman's control over his powers has grown exponentially over the years, hinting at a future where he could become one of the most powerful beings on Earth, a force of nature capable of reshaping the world in his icy image. He is quite literally a walking, talking, potentially global catastrophe waiting to happen, making his unusual nature all the more important to keep in check. Number 7. Colossus's unbreakable armor. Colossus, the X-Men's gentle giant, possesses the remarkable ability to transform his entire body into organic steel, a living, breathing metal that grants him near invulnerability. But this isn't just any ordinary metal. No. It's an extraterrestrial substance of incredible density and strength, far surpassing any earthly alloy. In his armored form, Colossus can withstand extreme temperatures, from the scorching heat of lava to the frigid cold of Iceman himself. He can shrug off massive impacts and even endure the crushing pressure of the ocean depths or the vacuum of space for a limited time. He is a walking, talking tank, a nearly indestructible force on the battlefield. Yet this immense power is juxtaposed with his inherently gentle and artistic nature. He's a paradox, really, a being of immense strength who would rather be painting landscapes than fighting battles, a testament to the complex and often contradictory nature of the X-Men. Number 6. Nightcrawler's dimensional travel. Now this one would be nice, wouldn't it? Nightcrawler's signature BAMF isn't just as cool as it sounds. It's not a sound effect. It's actually the sound of reality tearing as he teleports. But Kurt Wagner isn't simply disappearing or reappearing. disappearing, he's instantaneously traversing an entirely different dimension known as the Brimstone Dimension. This fiery, sulfurous realm filled with grotesque demonic entities serves as a shortcut, a scary one at that, but it's a shortcut through space-time that allows Nightcrawler to bypass the normal laws of physics and reappear virtually anywhere that he can visualize. The journey, though instantaneous for him, leaves a residual energy signature, often disrupting electrical fields in the area around his arrival and departure points, leaving a telltale scent of brimstone in the air. Number 5. Kitty Pryde's intangibility mastery. Kitty Pryde, also known as Shadowcat, possesses the extraordinary mutant ability to phase through solid matter, rendering herself intangible, really. Walls, doors, even fortified vaults pose no obstacle to her. She can simply walk through them as if they weren't even there. But her mastery over her phasing power extends far beyond mere personal intangibility. She can extend this ability to others, phasing them as well through objects along with her, making her invaluable for rescue missions and infiltrations. Furthermore, her phase state disrupts electrical systems and even scrambles telepathic signals, making her mind resistant to psychic intrusion. That must be nice, right? Professor X not getting in your head all day? Ugh. Number 4. Gambit's potential. Gambit, the charming card-throwing Cajun rogue, possesses the mutant ability to charge inanimate objects with volatile kinetic energy, essentially turning anything he touches into a weapon. While he favors playing cards as his weapon of choice, the truth is he can charge anything, from a pebble to a car, with this massive force. Coupled with his superhuman agility, acrobatic prowess, and mastery of close quarters combat, this makes him a formidable opponent. And also, he's a magician, so good luck. Pick a card. Not the right card, now you're knocked out. See you later. Number 3. Storm's atmospheric authority. Storm, the weather goddess, doesn't just control the weather, no, she is the weather. She is the weather, okay? She can summon storms, generate lightning, fly on wind currents, and even create global-scale weather phenomena. She's also worshipped as a goddess in Wakanda. She is literally a force of nature. Number 2. Magneto's mental fortress. Ever wonder how Magneto resists Professor X's telepathy? His iconic helmet isn't just for the show. It's crafted from a special metal that blocks psychic intrusions, giving him a mental fortress, literally, against even the strongest telepaths. This allows him to be a constant wild card. And since the X-Men can never tell what he's going to do next, it leaves him in quite a villainous spot, right? What is he thinking? What has he got behind those metal eyes over there? And finally, number 1, Wolverine's mysterious past. Wolverine's past is a tangled web of amnesia, trauma, and hidden memories. All things you don't want in life. His healing factor suppresses his worst memories, making it hard for him to know his own history. And guess what? His claws weren't always adamantium. They were originally bone. Could you imagine? Only later, though, through this horrific Weapon X program, were they then bonded with the indestructible metal that we now know and love. Wolverine's healing factor is his defining and most extraordinary power. It's a little OP if you ask me. This accelerated healing allows him to recover from almost any injury. Any wound, any deep slash, any severe burn, or even be dismembered, God forbid, he can heal. But this power goes beyond mere healing, and some speculate it's actually an advanced survival mechanism that adapts his body to survive in even the most extreme environments, or events, or battles. Wolverine has withstood nuclear blasts, survived losing parts of his body that you probably shouldn't, and overcome toxins and diseases that would be fatal to any other person. His healing factor has also significantly slowed his aging process, that's why they cast Hugh Jackman, meaning that he appears to be in his prime always, despite having lived for over a century. God, Hugh Jackman's so handsome. Adamantium skeleton. Wolverine's skeletal structure is one of the most indestructible aspects of his body, and that's all thanks to adamantium bonding. During his time as a test subject for Weapon X, a government program designed to create super soldiers, his bones were coated with this nearly indestructible metal, turning his skeleton into, well, you saw what Deadpool did to him, right? It worked. Not only does this make his bones unbreakable, but it also gives his claws, which are housed within his forearms, the ability to slice through almost anything and anybody. Ooh, yikes. The mystery of his past. Wolverine's origins are steeped in mystery and intrigue. I mean, makes it a good comic book, right? His early life is clouded by amnesia, making it difficult to piece together the truth of his own past. It's believed that Wolverine once had a family, but they were tragically taken out by Sabretooth, his now fierce rival. However, the truth of this claim is actually uncertain, as both Wolverine and Sabretooth had their memories tampered with during their involvement in said Weapon X program. Wolverine's only tangible connection to his past is a wedding ring, a constant reminder of the family that he lost. Weapon X. Weapon X was the secret program that transformed Wolverine into the ultimate weapon, pun intended. Through brutal experiments, they bonded adamantium to into his bones, making him nearly invulnerable, and of course at the same time erased his memories, leaving him as Mutant Zero, a blank slate all in their control. Now these experiments gave him unmatched power, but at the cost of his freedom and humanity. The program's grip on Wolverine shaped his life, raising the haunting question, can he ever truly break free from the influence of Weapon X and reclaim what he once was? 9 movies later, we still don't have an answer. Sabretooth. I mentioned this bad guy earlier, let's talk about him a bit more. Wolverine's rivalry with Sabretooth is one of the most personal and intense in the Marvel Universe. See, both were subjects of the Weapon X program, and their shared history has been defined by bitter hatred and violent clashes. Now Sabretooth, of course with his own mutant abilities, has been a constant thorn in Wolverine's side, and their battles are messy and they're quite legendary. Wolverine has tried to take out Sabretooth on numerous occasions, with one of the most memorable moments being when he, took this off his body, right? Can't say it, but you know it. However, despite Wolverine's best efforts, Sabretooth always seems to come back, relentless and ready for more. The Gulf War encounter. Wolverine's time during the Gulf War is a significant moment in his life, as it marks a turning point in his journey towards reclaiming this humanity that he seeks. While under the control of Weapon X, Wolverine was once again deployed into battle. Now, during a vehicle ambush, Wolverine was freed and, in a savage display of power, took out all of his enemies. Every single one. You're out of here. However, what followed was an unexpected moment of kindness, which sounds weird after what I just said. He then encountered Nick Fury, a fellow soldier who recognized him from an earlier encounter during World War II. Now Wolverine, seeing Fury injured, carried him to safety, a rare act of humanity for the otherwise ruthless and cold Wolverine that we knew at that time, and this act of compassion would later play a critical role in his escape from Weapon X, as Fury then helped him break free from the program's control. Nick Fury's an OG. Joining the X-Men. Wolverine's entrance into the X-Men was anything but conventional. See, initially he was sent by Magneto to infiltrate the team and eliminate Professor Xavier. However, Wolverine soon found himself drawn to Xavier's ideals and the cause of the X-Men themselves. His initial motivations were based on manipulation and espionage, but over time he formed deep bonds with his fellow mutants, particularly Jean Grey. Yeah, we know what happens there. His connection with Jean grew complicated, if I can say that, and despite his initial mission to destroy the X-Men from within, Wolverine ended up betraying Magneto and truly joined the X-Men. Sabretooth's return. And he's back, just when we thought we lost him. Even after Wolverine took out Sabretooth, his rivalry with the villain did not end. It's a comic book, it's never gonna end. Sabretooth returned in a shocking twist, and his resurrection came with a massive revelation. He claimed to be Wolverine's biological father. It's like Star Wars all over again. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to their already fraught relationship, as it now blurred the lines between family and rivalry. Now what do we do? Do we attack him? Do we not? Are we cool? Are we family? Dad? What? Wolverine, whose past was already shrouded in mystery, was now forced to confront the idea that his most hated enemy might also now be his father. God, that's an uncomfortable dinner. Ultimate Wolverine vs. Hulk. Ultimate Wolverine's encounter with the Hulk in Tibet stands as one of his most brutal and surprising battles, and I really want to see it on screen. My gosh. Tasked by S.H.I.E.L.D. with eliminating the Hulk, good luck, Wolverine tracked him down, but what ensued was a vicious confrontation. Despite Wolverine's healing factor, the Hulk literally ripped him in half, leaving Wolverine to regenerate and climb back up the mountainside to recover his missing limbs. Yeah, we've all been there before. Yeah, I can relate. Their battle was not just about strength and power, but also about understanding the tragic nature of their respective existences. After their fight, Wolverine and the Hulk shared a moment of mutual respect. That's an odd fist bump. And they acknowledged each other's strength. Hey, good game. I'm gonna go find my legs. Cool. Wolverine's ultimate fate. So how does this end? How did the Ultimates end Wolverine? Wolverine's ultimate fate came during the Ultimatum storyline, where he faced off against his longtime adversary, Magneto. In this final confrontation, there was a massive twist. Magneto ripped the adamantium from Wolverine's skeleton, rendering him now vulnerable for the first time in years. The battle culminated in Wolverine's passing as Magneto used his powers to finish him. And this time, he was actually gone. This tragic passing was a sobering moment in the X-Men's history, but it didn't erase his legacy. Wolverine's impact on the mutant world was profound, and his passing left a void that would continue to shape the future of all mutant kind. Altered origin. In the Ultimate Universe, Wolverine's origin takes a darker and, sadly, a more tragic turn. This version of Logan, introduced in Ultimate Universe 1 year in, is captured by Directorate X, a shadowy organization aiming to create the perfect hero. Well, lack thereof, really. Unlike his mainstream counterpart, this Logan is unable to escape their control and is transformed into a mindless tool of destruction, referred to as only the specimen. His captors pushed his healing abilities to their limits and used him as a living nightmare for their agenda. Now, this heartbreaking twist does highlight how the Ultimate Universe reimagines classic heroes. Just like we saw when it redefined Spider-Man by starting his story in his adulthood, this story here redefines Wolverine by stripping away all of his freedom, which is a core part of his character. So now we get this monster. This new storyline positions Wolverine as a tragic figure whose eventual escape will be marked by rage and regret, emphasizing the theme of rejecting the Maker's manipulated world.
Number 10. Dupe. Dupe is one of the X-Men who is known for being pretty ridiculous, and as such, a lot of people do not take Dupe seriously at all, which also extends to Dupe's power levels. However, I would argue that Dupe is actually one of the most powerful X-Men ever, who is simply grossly underrated due to his nonsensical appearance and depiction. Dupe has powers that allow him to influence the emotions of others, perform magic, resurrect, travel in the liminal space between comic book panels, shatter the fourth wall as he pleases, and honestly, so much more. I think perhaps this is the reason, in fact, that he doesn't appear as often in the comics, and therefore isn't as appreciated for his powers by fans. He's just too crazy. He's just too powerful. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd and you love it when we talk about X-Men, I know I love it, be sure that you click that subscribe button, ring that bell so you do not miss out whenever we are talking about all the X-Men goodness. Number 9. Tempest. Tempest could literally undo anyone in the blink of an eye, like she did with Matthew Malloy, who was set up to be pretty much the most powerful mutant in almost all of existence, I would say. His reality bending was honestly off the charts, and yet Tempest was able to defeat him by traveling back in time to make sure his parents never met. Ho-ho. Her ability allows her to create time bubbles in which she can control the flow of time. Her powers earned her a place on Krakoa's Five, a team created for the purpose of handling all mutant resurrections. She can slow or speed up time as much as she wants within the bubbles, and can also use her chronokinesis powers to time travel. Number 8. Juggernaut. Juggernaut, a well-known X-Men antagonist, is widely regarded as one of the most powerful characters in the comics. Even though he is not a mutant, he became a member of the X-Men team after losing most of his abilities due to a dispute with Sidorak and seeking reconciliation with his stepbrother Charles Xavier. Interestingly, Juggernaut managed to form many friendships during his time with the X-Men. When I say that Juggy is underrated, I don't necessarily mean as a powerful character. I think we all know how powerful and dangerous Juggernaut can be. I personally would not want to face him, that is for sure. But when it comes to him as a member of the X-Men, I feel like this is often overlooked, and that overall he's a somewhat underrated member of the team in terms of what he brings to it. And I don't just mean in terms of his powers. Number 7. Beast. Beast is underrated on, honestly, a lot of levels, whether we're talking about classic Beast or current Beast, but especially I feel with the current Beast that we have, that guy is downright deadly. Not only was he unable to be reined in by Wolverine, who ultimately ended up killing Beast after Beast had him become his lapdog to be sent out on some of the darkest missions of X-Force, reducing Wolverine to a mere tool used for wiping out perceived threats to Krakoa, but he also perhaps has become even more dangerous after being resurrected. Now we have multiple Beast clones who themselves are working on their own small army of Wolverine clones with the project known as Weapons of X. Number 6. Sync. Sync is only now starting to be fully appreciated by fans around the world, all thanks to his reappearance in the Krakoa era. Sync was one of the people prioritized for resurrection, as he was needed to go on a mission into the Vault where the children of the Vault had retreated. Considering them and their evolution a threat, the Quiet Council put together a small away team to investigate what was happening inside the Vault, sending them out to basically infiltrate it. This is just what Sync, Darwin, and Laura Kinney, then known as Wolverine, currently known as Talon in the comics, were tasked to do. It's here that we got to bask in Sync's rainbow colors, saw the relationship develop between Everett himself and Laura, and where we learned that it might be possible for Sync to even sync with others who were not mutants. We'd also learn in the X-Men series that Sync had evolved to a point that he could remain synced with his fellow mutants even when outside of their range, making Sync possibly one of the most powerful mutants to just have ever existed. Number 5. Banshee. Banshee, simply put, isn't a hero we focused on here on Top 10 Nerd. I can't remember the last time I featured him on a list, and yet he kicks butt consistently in the comics. Banshee's mutant powers turn him into a siren, which oddly enough is the name for his daughter, who shares his abilities, the name that she took up for herself as an active mutant hero. Banshee can use his powers to attack his opponents, fly, see in the dark with sonar abilities, influence and persuade his opponents, and even create shields, all with the use of his amazing voice. Basically, he's like a smaller scale Black Bolt, which means that while Black Bolt, the Inhuman King, gets a ton of love in the comics and outside, other Sonic-based heroes like Banshee's Sean Cassidy tend to fall by the wayside, sadly. Number 4. Chimera. Chimera is the daughter of Storm and likely Black Panther, who hails from the alternate reality 13729. Chimera seems to have inherited the powers of her mother, but also shares a connection to the Earth, which allows her to draw on and harness its energy. She is also a skilled tracker and can communicate telepathically with animals. I'd also assume, as she's the daughter of Storm and of T'Challa, that she is a skilled combatant as well, as while Storm is more well known for her goddess status and weather manipulation powers, she's also an extremely skilled fighter as well, and her dad would obviously be a given inspiration for her as a fighter. Black Panther is well known for his fighting prowess. Chimera may have hailed from Earth 13729, where she was a member of the X-Men, but after being displaced to Earth 616, the main comic book continuity, she also became a member of the X-Men there as well. Number 3. Angel/Archangel. Warren Worthington III is not usually folks' first pick for mutants who are their favorite among those who have belonged to the X-Men team, but it is important, I think, to acknowledge Warren's history with the mutants and consider the fact that he is a legacy member of the X-Men. Warren joined up with the very first roster of the X-Men team to have ever existed, being one of the first members to be brought together by Charles Xavier. Sure, he might have hollow bones and his powers may mostly involve just flight, but when it comes to flying, Warren has proven in the past that he is one of the best, and in his Archangel form, he is even more powerful. He is also one of the most useful mutants outside of his power set, being an extremely accomplished businessman who tends to be one of the most charismatic members of the X-Men, who since his early days has been popular with the public, helping the team's image. Number 2. Polaris. Polaris is a character who I feel like often gets overshadowed by her dad, Magneto, and yet she too is just as much, or nearly as much I'd say, of a powerhouse as he is. Polaris has had somewhat of a rough go in recent years, especially when it comes to confronting her past and moving forward towards her future. I would love to see more moments like when she joined the X-Men, where she gets her moment in the spotlight. It's well deserved, and Lorna Dane deserves to not have her character sabotaged at every single turn, like has happened to her in some of her past. She's underrated on multiple levels, both as a hero and as a character with some real depth to her. I think it would be really amazing to see her team up with her now considered adoptive sister and brother as well to fight against injustice in the world. I love all the healing we've been doing with this whole family lately, and it would be so cool to continue along that path and see where else it could take us, especially if we bring the family together as a unit. I've seen it happen a little bit in the comics, but I'd love to see more of it. Number 1. Kid Omega. Poor Kid Omega's trope initially with his appearance in the Krakoan era X-Men comics involved him constantly being taken out, as in permanently defeated. But don't let that fool you. Quentin Quire is still a psionic badass who deserves your respect. He is considered to be one of a limited few mutants who belong to the Omega level class, meaning that he has unlimited potential in terms of what he can accomplish. And while being super powerful psionically, he's also super brilliant as well, and can actually think faster and at a higher capacity than even other extremely powerful and skilled Omega level telepaths. Quentin joined up with Logan's X-Men and has been shown to be a potential future Phoenix in Wolverine and the X-Men issue number 42. Number 10. Moira MacTaggert. If you're familiar with Marvel's new House of X saga, you might be familiar with the new spin on Moira MacTaggert. While some may argue that her powers do not warrant Omega level, as if she dies before her powers manifest, she will be killed for good, she is the only mutant I have ever known to have reincarnation powers. Her powers effectively allow her to change the Marvel universe, to change the story, and possibly also affect the outcome. Her reincarnation powers also grant her a higher level of intelligence and make her an anomaly in terms of any mutant detectors, which makes her pretty powerful, especially in the mutant versus human wars, which inevitably come about in the X-Men storylines. I would argue that her keeping her memories makes her the strongest mutant of this type so far. Granted, she is also the only one. And I would argue that the potential for her powers has not yet been fully uncovered. Reincarnation is a powerful ability, especially if one can have more sway over how it all comes about, and the time at which you are conceived and born. And who knows, perhaps this could change as Moira continues to develop her abilities. Number 9. Kitty Pryde. You can't hurt what you can't hit. And we don't seem to have anyone with phasing focused abilities yet at Omega level status. So my suggestion for that category is Kitty. Her abilities allow her to phase through solid material, making anything she touches intangible as a choice or making herself intangible. This also makes her almost untouchable in a fight. You might think, well, I bet she is pretty weak to psychic attacks, but due to her phasing, her mind almost appears as unidentifiable to most telepaths, and it's really hard to pin down, giving her a natural resistance to mental attacks. In the alternate Marvel Zombieverse, she was also one of the few superhero survivors, eventually choosing to sacrifice herself to put an end to the infection. Shadowcat isn't just an Omega level mutant in terms of her control over her abilities, she is also just an Omega level person in regards to how many times she actually sacrifices herself for the greater good in the comics. Number 8. Cyclops. I could have easily also included Havoc on this list, to be honest. With the discovery of a third Summer in the 2000s who goes by the codename Vulcan, who was already considered Omega level, it is surprising to me that we have not officially declared Scott Summers as such. You might think his optic blasts are not enough to warrant this status, but I would argue against that. The Phoenix Force, when it was split into the Phoenix 5, chose him, and the Phoenix Force is not known for choosing just anyone. If it chooses you, this means you basically have unlimited potential. It has been described in the comics as being drawn to those with unlimited power, and as a result, Scott became obsessed with it once he was possessed by the Force. I'm also a big believer in the idea that the Phoenix Force helps you unlock that potential and reveals your true self, which means that Scott is kind of low-key obsessed with power all the time, and that Jean Grey wants to do what's best but is also vulnerable to corruption by power. And let's not forget that Cyclops has been infused with the power of the Phoenix not just once, but in fact twice. What? Number 7. Jubilee. While I may lovingly poke fun at Jubilee from time to time due to the way her powers are often portrayed in the comics, in the 90s cartoon, and even sometimes in movies, the fact remains that she has accomplished some amazing feats in the comics, including pretty much obliterating Mandarin's mansion when she thought Logan was dead and her powers just went haywire. In fact, when it comes to our discussion about unlimited power in regards to Omega level, Emma Frost once referred to Jubilee as one of the most powerful mutants she had ever met in terms of her potential. Jubilee's abilities have been explained before in the comics as affecting matter on a subatomic level. The explosions she can emit could actually be used in the same way a nuclear fusion bomb could. If that's not Omega, I don't know what is. Number 6. Mystique. The most recognizable shapeshifter in the comic book world, Mystique first appeared in the comics in Ms. Marvel Volume 1, Issue 16. Not only is she the most recognizable shapeshifter, one could argue that she is the most powerful and successful shapeshifter in the comics. She can impersonate almost anyone in terms of appearance and voice, has tricked many into thinking she was someone she was not, and her current resurrection has even gone so far as to allow her to shapeshift into animals. Beyond this, she is also one of the oldest mutants. Due to her abilities, aging for her doesn't really seem to be a thing, and she is close to, if not over, 100 years old. Although I'm not sure if we would call it unlimited potential, she has exhibited an evolution over the years in comics. Granted, this appears to be more as a result of storyline and character development than power growth. She has even been seen turning herself 2D and partially liquefying her body. That is some next level body transformation. Number 5. Psylocke. What I find kind of strange is that Psylocke's not as well known brother Jamie Braddock has been elevated to Omega level, and yet Psylocke has not been? Betsy Braddock has 2 siblings actually, her more devious brother Jamie and her twin brother Brian, who is also known as Captain Britain. Although Psylocke was also Captain Britain for a while. Let's compare Betsy and Jamie when it comes to their abilities. Betsy is a powerful telepath who also possesses strong telekinetic abilities, while Jamie is your average Marvel reality manipulator / magic user. While he has pulled off some impressive feats, Psylocke tends to be the star of the show when it comes to putting in the work and heroic acts. Jamie is typically presented as the villain of most stories. Psylocke's abilities have always sort of been in a weird state of flux, and while she has been portrayed portrayed as insanely powerful when it comes to her telepathic abilities, and then later when she lost those, her telekinetic abilities, it seems that since retrieving her telepathic abilities and her telekinetic abilities, she has become somewhat depowered. I guess she had to split her power level between both abilities? Although she has not been confirmed as being an Omega level mutant, she has been teased as being a character that could be granted such a status. In 2010, Marvel's Uncanny X-Men writer Rick Remender referred to her abilities as being at a burgeoning Omega level. Come on Marvel, stop teasing and let's see Psylocke join the Omega level ranks. Number 4. Quicksilver. While I recognize that the Maximoff Twins have gone back and forth in terms of whether or not they are considered mutants due to so many retcons involving their backstory, I really like them both as mutants. And beyond that, Quicksilver first appeared in the X-Men comic series, so I'm deciding to talk about him as a mutant. I don't know why there seems to be such a huge divide in the comics right now between X-Men and Avengers actually. You can do both. It's like Marvel is trying to set up the comics and possibly MCU for another X-Men vs Avengers event. I just want everyone to get along. I was actually super surprised when I could not find or think of anything that referred to Pietro as being Omega level. He is after all the fastest person in the Marvel universe. Although he has definitely done some dastardly things, he also proved that he is one of the most powerful when it comes to anything that needs to be done fast. While X-Men Apocalypse was not critically acclaimed and currently sits at 47% on Rotten Tomatoes in regards to its ratings, it also helped to prove just how powerful Quicksilver is when it gave us this scene of him saving all of Professor X's teachers and students when the Academy blew up, including the Goldfish. Also, Evan Peters' Quicksilver is just life. Beyond that, he also saved the entire world from the Grandmaster and Challenger during the events of the No Surrender storyline. Number 3. Charles Xavier. Speaking of Professor X, where is he on the Omega level list? I was actually triggered when I couldn't find him listed as Omega level anywhere, and I'm not the type to ever get triggered, but this just blew my mind. Jean Grey is Omega level and is of course more powerful than Charles, so I understand that the reasoning behind this may be that he is surpassed by Jean and therefore does not qualify. However, while both are telepaths, they are sort of different types of telepaths. And honestly, if Emma Frost gets to be Omega level, then so should Charles in my mind. Where Charles and Jean differ though, is Jean's powers are unlimited, but Charles exhibits an intense level of control over his powers. I know this isn't really what Omega is about, but the level at which Charles can manipulate people has also always made me suspicious that there is more to him than a telepath, and that he could potentially later be revealed to be a really strong empath. Him being an empath would actually probably make him the strongest mutant empath out there. Regardless of my suspicions, he is the father of Legion, who has been granted Omega level status, and I feel like David coming in part from him is proof that he has more potential than we've been led to believe. Number 2. Scarlet Witch. I know, both Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver have been retconned as genetically altered humans, but she was originally a mutant, and before the Avengers and X-Men divide got so weird and intense, she kinda used to do both. Before her powers got so ingrained in magic, Scarlet Witch had mutant reality warping powers that were simply intensified by her magical bonds. Ignoring her mutant history is like imagining House of M never happened, and that comic event is too good to just let it disappear from your mind. Scarlet Witch was known as Magneto's daughter, and in my heart, she definitely still is. When it comes to reality altering powers, almost no one in the comics has been shown to be on Scarlet Witch's level. She can create armies out of thin air, she made all mutants disappear, and before that she actually created an artificial paradise world where everyone lived happily until their memories started to resurface and kinda made them question things. She even banished the Phoenix Force from existence. Whether or not her powers will ever return to being classified as mutant powers, she is definitely an Omega level character currently, and should have been classified as an Omega level mutant back when she was one. Number 1. Rogue. Having the ability to have almost any ability should make you Omega in and of itself. That is to say, Rogue has one of the most useful mutant abilities out there. She can steal others' powers and in doing so also weaken them, and all she needs to do is touch someone. Granted, Rogue has been on a long long journey in the comics when it comes to trying to control her powers. During the X-Men Legacy series, Rogue was shown to have gained full control over her powers, sharing a kiss with her love Gambit. Aww. However, her control sometimes appears to falter depending on the storyline you're reading. Regardless, she's definitely the most powerful mutant when it comes to absorbing someone else's abilities, life force, and memories, rivaling even Legion's prowess, especially since she can manifest multiple powers at the same time.